Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today we got another story. It's by user The Fifth Tree. I found it on r/TalesFromTheCreeps. Just scrolling through, I found the title. It interested me. It's called "My Neighbor Never Looks the Same." So I think that sounds pretty cool. But as I was scrolling through his profile, it looks like he has a bunch of stuff that looks actually really cool. He's only been on Reddit for 3 months, it looks like. But he's posted all over. He's got, honestly, every story that I'm seeing on here looks interesting. My snake grew whiskers. That looks awesome. That looks like that got pretty big. 35 upvotes on Tales from the Creeps and sorry, and scary stories. But this is his most recent. It was posted just 9 hours ago, actually, as of recording this. So I'm excited to read it, try it out, see what I think of it. But just from the title, I assume it's maybe not Wendigo, but maybe doppelganger, something like that. And stories like that, they always hit, at least in my eyes. Even though there are a lot of them, I don't think it's overdone, as far as I've heard. Obviously, maybe I'm just not sick of them, and everyone else is over this fucking genre. Like, God, no. I think this is a story that I'm gonna really enjoy, and I think you all will really enjoy it too. But without further ado, let's get into it. It's the classic thing they all say in the documentaries. He was just a normal guy who kept to himself. No one could have known. Fuck that. This guy was weird from the day he moved next door. I went and knocked on the door a few days after he moved in with a loaf of banana bread to welcome him, as I assume a good neighbor would, and my girlfriend made me take it. His whole house was shrouded in darkness, curtains closed over all the visible windows, and the view through the obscured glass of his front door displayed near pitch darkness. There was no movement, no hint of him approaching the door through the glass, but perhaps that was due to the dim nature of his house. So I was mildly startled when, without warning, the door opened to reveal the mousy little man who lived behind it. Normally, I would be opposed to such unflattering descriptions for fear of being unnecessarily mean, but knowing now what he is, I don't care. The best word to describe him was moist. From his greasy, thinning hair to his drab gray blazer and the patchy light blue shirt clinging to his skeletal frame. All of it was soaked through and sopping with what one would assume to be sweat. He was an unusually short man, with a wiry brown mustache and a fogged-up pair of round glasses that, whether or not inadvertently, hid his eyes between the misty white moisture on the lenses. He inspected me up and down before smiling, a thin-lipped, almost pained smile. Hi. I nervously cleared my throat before starting again. I'm, Nathan. I live next door at number 15 with my girlfriend Kate. You know, easy to remember, Nate and Kate. I chuckled, though quickly tailed off when he didn't so much as blink. I just wanted to stop by and give you this, welcome you to the neighborhood, and just say hi from me and Kate, and yeah. Oh, how... He stopped, looking me up and down again. Nice. I'm, Michael. Yeah, Michael. Or, you can call me Mike. He extended a pale, clammy hand for me to shake, but I nodded towards both my hands holding the plate of banana bread as an excuse not to. So, I think I did a great job narrating both of these people, because they talk just like me. Awkwardness. Yeah, no, these people are me. Except Michael. I'm a little less sweaty. Just a little less sweaty. And I don't like banana bread. But that was all. Continuing on. Yeah, so this is for you, and yeah, swing by sometime for a drink or something. I'm sure Kate would love to meet you too. With shaking hands and a wistful, yeah, that'd be nice. He took the plate and shuffled back behind the threshold of his front door, slowly closing it behind him. We didn't see him or our plate back for a good month. Kate kept telling me to go knock on the door and ask for it back, but I really didn't want to have to talk to him again and was consistently finding any excuse not to. In the end, Kate decided to go herself. She was gone for maybe 20 minutes before she returned with an unprecedented smile on her face. "What are you grinning about?" I asked, already on edge. "You!" she laughed. "You've been fucking with me, admit it." She shot me a triumphant smirk as she conspicuously passed me with the plate to put it in the sink. "He seems like a lovely guy, charming, funny, kinda cute." Very funny. Seriously, what was he like?" "I am being serious," she laughed. "I thought you were messing with me, like, what were you going on about? You made him sound like some sweaty Reddit mod." "Yeah, that's what he was. I don't know what to tell you, I guess." "Yeah, well, now I get to prove you wrong." Kate turned to face me from the kitchen counter. "He's invited us over for a drink this afternoon." "Oh, no, I know you've got nothing going on today. Come on, it'll be fun." She looked so happy about it. I guess she always was the extrovert between the two of us, but I couldn't help feeling trepidation at the thought of it. But what the heck, I thought. First impressions can be deceiving. Maybe I was wrong about him. It seemed like when he opened the door, a big smile on his face. It seemed like it. Excuse me. She looked so happy about it. I guess she was always the extrovert between the two of us, but I couldn't help feeling trepidation at the thought of it. But what the heck, I thought. First impressions can be deceiving. Maybe I was wrong about him. It seemed like that. Fuck. She looked so happy about it. I guess she was always the extrovert between the two of us, but I couldn't help feeling trepidation at the thought of it. But what the heck, I thought. First impression can be deceiving. Maybe I was wrong about him. It seemed like it when he opened the door, a big smile on his face as he ushered us inside. Honestly, you could hardly tell he was the same guy. Black hair flowing down to his now unhunched shoulders, and the warmest smile he could muster stretched across his once pallid face. He must have grown at least a foot, if not more, now almost level with my eyeline. I smiled back as I stepped across the threshold, though. I'm sure mine was far less convincing. "Nate, how have you been? It's been a while." He laughed and patted me on the back as I stepped past him. "Yeah, good, good. You know, the usual, same old whatever." "You look like you're doing well. I mean, I hardly recognized you." "Hey, yeah, well, I got my eyes lasered, so yeah, it's like I got new eyes. No more glasses, I suppose." "That must be it," I lied. He laughed again. Please, come in. Just leave your shoes by that cabinet just over there. Kitchen is that way." I followed Kate into the house, Mike following closely at my heels. I didn't dare look back at him, but from the heat radiating through my clothes and onto my skin, I could have sworn it felt like he was only a fraction of an inch away from being pressed against my back as he pursued us. So here I'm imagining that, like, Baki walking scene. I'm sure someone will know what I'm talking about. As we rounded the corner to his kitchen, he slithered past me in order to get ahead of us, and as he asked, "Can I get either of you a drink? I've got a couple of different wines, soft drinks." "Ooh, do you have rose?" Kate said, following him to the fridge. "I've got a few." "Provenci?" "Ah, woman of taste. I most certainly do, my dear." With a sickening laugh, he produced a bottle from behind the fridge door. "Nate, anything for you?" "Oh, do you have like a Coke or something?" Looks like I only have diet. Is that alright?" Before I had the chance to answer, Kate turned and glared at me, anticipating my response. With a grimace, I nodded to her before replying, "Yeah, that's great. Thanks." With an overemphasized gesture, he directed us round a corner into a new room. I followed behind Kate and immediately tensed when I heard a gasp as she entered the room, preparing myself for whatever horror may lay ahead. Close behind, I stepped into what appeared to be a living room, though it looked like it had never been lived in. The whole thing was stale and lifeless, like some sort of pamphlet showroom. The curtains and sofas existed without a single crease, and there was this large TV on one of the walls, still with plastic film over the screen. The carpet sat under the coffee table in the middle of the room, but appeared completely unused, as every single fiber was perfectly combed in the same direction as its neighbors. I followed Kate to the sofa and sat beside her, as Mike delicately perched himself on a chair opposite us staring unblinkingly between the two of us. I sat and nursed my Diet Coke for hours, feigning interest in the conversation as I slowly transitioned into zoning out completely. At some point, the conversation moved on to Mike's career, which would have been interesting if we hadn't made that weird too. Apparently, he worked in practical effects and makeup for TV and movies. Sounds interesting on the surface, right? I thought so too until he disappeared around the corner and came back with a picture frame with hair in it. Different rows of hair. Black, brown, blonde, nicely combed and organized. I don't know about you or people in his line of work, but I think that's pretty fucking weird. So far, I'm liking the protagonist. Very much, actually. He seems like he's smart. He knows what he saw. He knew that motherfucker was fucking weird ass Discord mod. Obviously, we know that too, assuming this is a reliable narrator. But I like the doubt that he's giving, whereas he is also leaning towards trying to believe it. Like, whether it's for his girlfriend or for him or just whether he thinks he's crazy. Whatever. But I like how he's picking up on the fact that's fucking weird. I get having, like some places have like a certain room with like a mannequin head and you can snip the fucking mannequin's hair, but I don't know. I'm not a hairstylist either, but I would think it's weird if someone came in with rows of hair, especially with what was happening before. I also like earlier it said when it mentioned the standing like right behind him, I did really like that detail. I know I made a stupid Baki reference, but I think that's awesome. That's like haunting. You can feel his body heat on you. That's a really cool description. But anyways, time to continue the story. Words can't describe how relieved I was when we finally got up to leave. He kept offering Kate more and more wine and trying to get me to join. And he made a joke, I'm assuming, about having his guest room available if we need it. But he kept saying it, like we didn't live 10 fucking yards away. Regardless, we managed to escape a few hours later as a sober me guided my now wobbly partner back to our front door after an irritatingly long goodbye. And finally, it was over. Weeks passed, and then months, and I had cast Mike out of my mind completely. You know how it is with neighbors. Yeah, you live next to each other, but you only really see them or interact a few times a year. And I was quite happy to keep it that way too, but Kate was less happy to stay disconnected than I. She burst into the kitchen one evening after work, practically buzzing with her own excitement. Nate, you won't believe this." "Oh God, what's happened?" "I just saw Mike." She leaned forwards, both hands planted firmly on the table. "With a girl." "Really? I kinda thought he was gay." "I know, right? I'm pretty sure, though. They were just walking down the road and, holding hands and everything." "Damn, well, good for him, I guess." "Yeah, she was cute, too. Blue-haired girl, that kind of vibe, you know. Who would have thought?" She always was a bit of a gossip, or as she calls it, taking an interest, but I never related. You know how it is, I'm not really interested in the subject. But she likes telling me about stuff, and unlike listening to her get excited, even if the topic doesn't interest me. Usually her gossip was relatively unimportant, or at least to me, but this piece was particularly boring, so I shelved it in the back of my mind to never think of or engage with until she next brings it up. That way, it wasn't her that reminded me, though. Sorry. The following week, I happened to see Mike from our bedroom window. He was in his backyard, mowing the lawn in a tank top and a pair of shorts. He saw me staring from the window and looked up, with a big smile and wave, before continuing with his own matters. But somehow, and for some reason, all of his hair was blue. I don't mean like he dyed his hair blue. He dyed all of it. Everything, from his arm hair to his legs, chest, and facial hair was a bright neon blue. I honestly didn't know how to react, so I just stared at him incredulously as I struggled to decide between laughing or recoiling in disgust. He didn't stay like that for long, though. The next time I saw him, maybe a month later, He was just back to his regular old black hair, though it was longer again. His face had changed too. His once round jaw was becoming straighter and more defined. He was taller now, noticeably so. The day I'd met him, he stood just around 4 foot, but now he was far past 6 foot and close to having to crouch to enter his own front door. Just a fundamentally different person. His hair was always the easiest tell. He was ginger for a little while, then blonde, then back to black again. He was constantly getting taller, and he never seemed to gain weight. Much like stretching a rubber band, as he got taller, he only appeared to get thinner. I brought it up a few times to Kate, but she never seemed to notice or pay much mind to it. Some people just like to change the way they look every now and then. It was like this rainbow palette of hair colors was the only thing she would notice. But then again, she saw him much more often than I, constantly bumping into him on the street or in the shops. I guess if he was changing gradually, it's harder to notice when you see him more often. And every time she saw him, she continued to take an interest. It was through our inquiries and observations that we found out when he seemed to have multiple partners. A steady stream of people returning to his house with him. Mostly women, sometimes men, though it was never the same person twice. I got suspicious. Maybe he was a pimp or a dealer or something. Who knows, but it seemed so suspicious. At least to me. But I never did anything about it. I mean, there was no way of being sure, right? On the other hand, maybe it was work-related, or he was dating around, who knows? But I could never shake the feeling of suspicion that clawed its way back into my mind every time I saw him. There was one time, I remember, where I woke up in the middle of the night. Our bedroom was near silent, save for Kate's faint breathing beside me. Silent enough to hear next door. I could hear a woman screaming. It was muffled behind the wall that separated our houses, but it was unmistakably there. Just the sound turned my blood cold. After 10 minutes of tossing, turning, and wondering if I should do something, I gently shook Kate awake. She rolled over to face me with a quiet, and as she blinked the sleep from her eyes. "Do you hear that?" I whispered. "Hear what?" "It's like a woman screaming or something." She propped herself up on her hand and stared at me for a second. Even in the near pitch darkness of our room, I could still see the judgment on her face. "Nate, it's like 2 a.m. right now, and Mike has a guest over. I'm sure you can do the math on that one." "No, you don't think." I stopped, considering her words. As always, I had no proof, and really no reason to suspect the words. "I do. Now, can we just go back to bed?" She yawned, settling back under the covers and giving my arm a gentle tug. I conceded and lay back down as she pulled herself in a little closer with a whispered goodnight. Within seconds, she was back asleep, but I couldn't do the same with my mind still racing. The screaming continued for minutes till there was a heavy thud against the wall. Only silence followed. When I brought it up again the next morning, she suggested that if I was really that uncomfortable with it, I should go over and tell him to keep it down or something. As if that wouldn't be uncomfortable enough on a normal occasion, considering it involved interacting with Mike made it that much less enticing. So of course I didn't, and I just left it at that. The next 5 times I overheard screaming in the middle of the night, I just decided not to mention it to Kate. She came to me one night, at this point over a year since he first entertained us. It was December, and she said he wanted us to go over and celebrate the season or whatever. Of course I didn't want to go. I think we've established that at this point. "It might be fun," she said. "You sure you can't be tempted?" "I don't know, Kate. I just don't like the guy." "I thought you'd say that," she laughed. "That's fine. Not everyone likes everyone, you know, but I like Mike, so I'm gonna go and say hi and catch up. I'll be right around the corner, yeah?" "If you're sure, I'll wait up." "Yeah, and just text me or keep me updated or whatever." "Sure thing, I'll be back by like 10 or 11-ish. She stood up, grabbing her bag and keys. "Okay, have fun. I love you." "I know you do." She grinned at me as she shut the door behind her. That's crazy. I don't like their relationship. That's fucking creeping me out. First thing she said about this guy is he's cute and... I'm I'm not sure if I'm going to be agreed with on there, but I think it's kind of weird. Continuing on. She texted me at around 11 saying she was going to be back soon. Come midnight, she still wasn't home. I'd been texting and getting no responses. Finally, I was sick of it. I threw a hoodie on and headed next door. As always, his house was pitch black. As I was knocking, I was watching through the glass to spot any sign of movement, and as before, the shadows hid it all. When the door opened, I wasn't prepared for the new Mike. He had now far outgrown his own door, to the point where I couldn't see his face till he stepped back from the threshold. His style sickened me, more than usual, as he warmly stated, "Oh, hi, Nate." Fuck pleasantries. I just wanted to get to the point. "Kate's not home. Is she here?" "Kate? No, she left hours ago," he continued, smiling, feigning bewilderment. "Well, she's not come home, and I get the feeling she didn't get lost on her way back. So, you mind if I come have a look?" "Oh, Nathan, it's late. I was just getting ready for bed. I'd rather not." I didn't let him finish. I shouldered forward, pushing him aside as I barged my way in. Following the corridor round, I found my way back into his living room. It still looked identical, polished and smooth furniture, perfectly prim and proper home drug, and a nearly full glass of Provence. I ignored his call to ignore the mess as I circled the first room and headed straight for the stairs. As Mike rounded the corner, he blocked the way with one of his oversized, bony arms. "Nate, I'd really rather you don't go upstairs." "Then why don't you tell me what the fuck you've done with my girlfriend?" I glared up at him, trying as hard as I could to look intimidating while standing a good foot and a half below him. "I've not done anything, Nate. She left hours ago. Why are you being like this?" "Don't fucking lie to me." I pushed him, hard. To my surprise, he was both dense, felt as though he barely weighed anything at all, though his whole body was made of memory foam. He toppled backwards as his skinny legs struggled to support him, and he came crashing down. With a spongy thud, he landed, his body on the floor and his head wrenched at a 90-degree angle upon the foot of his front door cabinet. He cried out, maybe in pain, maybe in surprise. I didn't care. He was alive and he'd be up soon. I couldn't waste any time, and I bolted for the stairs. As I ascended the steps, the whole house seemed to disappear around me. Or, I should say, home, rather. There was no furniture or wallpaper or any sense of life above the top step. Molding, empty walls with open electrical cables dangling out of open cavities, peeling remnants of where wallpaper used to be, covered in water stains and black splotches. All the finished, perfect vision of the house disappears upon the threshold at the top of the stairs. All of it was gone, just far enough for it to be invisible to anyone who happened to look from downstairs. I know where his bedroom was. It shared a wall with ours, so I went straight for it as I heard Mike clambering to his feet downstairs. The door looked somehow older than the rest of the house. It looked like the burnt remains of a house fire, cracked and charred, and simultaneously rotted and molded by an abundance of moisture. The doorknob was almost entirely brown with age and corrosion, and refused to turn without excessive force. As the bedroom door finally swung open, I was immediately punched in the face by the pungent smell of stale water and rotting flesh. It was near pitch black in there, the windows covered in multiple layers of black fabric so that not even the forgiveness of the moon could cast any means of visibility. Though I couldn't see the room, I knew I wasn't alone, as the labored sound of breathing greeted me from the far corner. I fished around in my pockets for a second. Keys, change, no phone, shit. But I had my granddad's old Zippo, and it'd have to do. I flicked it on, and there, barely conscious and crumpled on the floor in the corner of the room, was Kate, half clothed with large patches of hair and skin missing, and in a pool of presumably her own blood, but alive. I was at her side in an instant, leaving the lighter lit on the floor beside us. I gently but urgently tried to pull her away from the wall, trying all the while to not touch any of her large patches of missing skin. Her whole body was slick and wet with viscous, sticky fluid that stank of rat piss. And as I went to pull her towards me, it only stuck harder, clinging on to both her and the wall. It steadfastly refused to let her budge, all the while making a sickening sound like an old man sucking his teeth as I desperately tried to tear her away. As the sound of footsteps sounded up the stairs, Kate finally pulled away in my arms, only revealing a massive circle of missing flesh from her shoulder blades to her lower back, slowly seeping what little blood her body had left to give. "The game is up, then?" Mike appeared in the doorway, his head now dangling down from the stump of his neck onto his shoulder, like a sun-dried tomato. His skin had pulled and wrinkled at the point where it stretched to accommodate his new cranial position. His veins bulged and writhed and twisted with every movement, as though a family of spiders might be trapped under his skin, desperately seeking any means of escape. Despite this, he still had a crouch as he entered the door, closing it behind him and smiling at me. I guess he was still happy. What are you? You're hard to fool, you know that." He placed an enormous hand on the top corner of the door and forced it shut. "But you should have just gone home when I gave you the chance." He stood upright, or more upright, I think more accurately. He grew again, his shoulders flexing as they almost brushed the black stained ceiling. His shirt swelled as his ribcage began to force its way out of his thin t-shirt. He dropped his knees as he gripped his head, holding it in place above what used to be his neck. As an indeterminate, knobbled object slid under the skin of his neck, he let go of his head, only for it to stay in position as it would have if it had never been detached. Even on his knees, he was still taller than me. His shirt finally gave way, tearing open at the force exerted from his widening torso. His ribcage, or where his ribcage should have been, was bulging out from his body. His ribs were covered in linear scars, all of them perfectly straight, like a surgical wound that would never fully heal. His legs began to bend and break with a sharp, moist crunching. They grew behind him, impossibly long, with too many knees protruding at odd angles. His legs, much like his arms, only got thinner and thinner, the skin becoming vacuum-sealed to his incorrectly shaped bones. The scarred skin around his exposed chest began to rip, as it stretched open on weak fibers. He tore his shirt off as it began to pull against his widening shoulders, only to reveal his entire stomach, chest, neck, and back were all covered in similar surgical scars. All of them joined shortly after, tearing open to reveal the creature underneath. Its limbs were black and uncomfortably sticky-looking. Two narrow, serrated, insectile arms extended from the torn skin at his ribcage as his neck continued extending. He tried to stand on his two hind legs, but the room was too short and his legs couldn't support him. So he clambered onto its four other limbs and began to slink his way towards Kate and I. On my own unsteady limbs, I crawled backwards, pinning Kate to the wall behind me whilst trying to gain some distance. I used to work as a bouncer for a bar a few years ago, and thought I had learned that if push comes to shove, my fight-or-flight response trusts me enough to do the former. But confronted by whatever the fuck this thing was, I couldn't seem to do either. I would have taken flight if my only means of exit wasn't on either end of the room, behind Mike. And as much as I wanted to take the fight, my body wouldn't move. All I could do was reach behind me and take Kate's hand in mine. It was limp and cold. She barely had her strength to close her fingers. She was barely clinging onto consciousness at all. He took his time, enjoying his slow approach. He'd always looked so happy, but to me it always looked fake, an act he put on to come across as friendly. But not this time. Written across his tearing, deformed face was the purest delight I'm sure he'd ever displayed. The skin of his face slipped away to reveal a mass of slimy gray flesh, covered in thinning black hair-like appendages, and slowly moving of its own accord. His mouth was sunken back in his face and invisible, but I knew it was there from the yellow saliva that was dripping down his malformed chin. The rest of it was dried and caked across his cheeks like dog. His body barely moved, but his ever-elongating neck did most of the work for him, pressing as close to me as he could before I recoiled at the stench. His body soon caught up, though, scuttling over to me so that his front arms could reach out and caress my face. "I love your hair," he sang, his spider-like hands slowly moving up to my head. One of his hands alone was enough to grip my entire head if he desired, though he never chose to. He leant in closer, his suspended head gliding back and again for a closer look. As soon as he was close enough, I punched him, as hard as I could. He grunted and recoiled for a second, As soon as he did, I grabbed one of his zigzag arms and cracked it over my crouching knee. It tore easily like a freshly cooked crab, but the remnants looked hardly edible, as a gooey, hair-filled black liquid spewed from the flailing stump. He stumbled back again as I stood to run at him, but he gathered himself quicker. He stood up taller, towering over me in the little room as he grabbed me by the throat. As he raised me up off my feet, he sliced down across my face with one of his serrated forearms. I cried out as the world turned dark for a second. The next thing I knew, I was on the floor in the dark room. My whole face was both on fire and numb. He placed one of his hands on my chest, holding me down as one of his other hands slid over my face. "Shh, it's okay," he cooed as he continued. I screamed as I felt his massive fingers sliding into my eye socket. That's about all I could do. They curled around the soft flesh and began to pull. The wet sounds of shifting flesh as the ball exited my skull filled the room for a second, only to be followed by my screaming once more. I couldn't breathe or think or move. I could feel my head lift off the ground as he tried to pull my eye away, only to be confronted by my optic nerve desperately trying to cling on to its owner. Another one of his hands gripped my face, forcing it back down onto the ground as he began to pull harder. The cord gave way, and he finally pulled his treasure up to his face for inspection. He laughed. "You know, it's so funny. I've always wanted green eyes." I couldn't see. With my one remaining eye, the pain was too intense, and the least I could do was keep both my eyelids shut. My arms flailed as I writhed on the ground in pain, only to be confronted by a sharp sting on my right knuckle. I felt for the source only to find the same intense sensation on my fingertips. My lighter? I kicked on the floor, unsure of where Mike was or what he was doing, but hoping it would be enough to shift my position just enough to grab my lighter. I forced my eyes open, only to find his face inches from mine, smiling down at me. Of course he was smiling. When wasn't he? His long, greasy, blood-stained hair was dangling between us like a curtain around both of our faces, blocking everything out of my peripherals. I grabbed the lighter and pushed it up under his hair and watched as the strands caught fire and shot all the way up to his face. Within seconds, he was in a blaze, like a dying insect. He writhed on the ground as he screamed every frequency at once, every voice he'd stolen crying out in a haunting harmony. I took my chance and lifted Kate off the ground, throwing the lighter at him. I ran for the door and down the stairs, bouncing off both the walls and the banister on the edge of my unconsciousness. Out of the front door, and finally, into our own house. I set Kate down on the stairs and retrieved the home phone, dialing for an ambulance. The rest is a blur. I made the call, but I don't remember any of it. Eyes closed, fading in and out of consciousness, running on the fumes of my own energy. I awoke in a hospital bed. I'm fine, and Kate's fine. Kind of. Thank God. There's not much that can be done about my eye, but I can't complain. I didn't get the worst of it. Somehow, Kate's follicles are missing, and her hair isn't going to grow back. Same with her nails. I'm missing most of my left cheek, and Kate is missing a lot of her everywhere. I might need a skin graft, and Kate definitely will. Ironic, I know. She woke up a few days ago, but she hasn't said much. I don't blame her. I spoke to the cops on our behalf, and they went and checked Mike's house out. It was about a week after it happened, and his front door was still open. There was blood in the bedroom, but having tested it, apparently, there's DNA from at least a dozen people, if not more. Worst of all, Mike, or the thing that he became, has not been seen. The house is empty, and despite checking local security footage from the surrounding houses, he was never seen leaving the house or in and around the neighborhood. It's all just a bit fucked, to be honest. I don't know how long till we're officially past this, but Kate's not going to be out of the hospital for a while. At the very least, I got discharged today, and we're both finally returning home. The house next door was boarded up and closed down after the investigation. Good, I thought. It's over and done with. We can all slowly try and forget about it. Our house looked like a crime scene, too. The stairs were covered in the dry blood that I had to spend a good hour cleaning. No more reminders. I knew I was going to sleep well. Finally a chance to be reunited with my own bed. I dragged myself through the house, up the freshly cleaned stairs and along the hallway. I grabbed myself straight to our bedroom, straight to my bed, straight to my granddad's lighter that was awaiting me on my pillow. Wow. That was really good. I really wanted to say a couple of things during the reading of that, but I was just invested. That was a fucking insane last sequence. I didn't expect that at all. Author, you're fucking fantastic at describing, like, all that shit. That was crazy. That ending, too, that's awesome. How the thing's still alive even after being burned alive, and it left the fucking lighter on his bed. That's so fucked. Again, I must have been wrong in the beginning about it being not like Wendigo creature, but whatever I said in the beginning. I kind of thought it would be, stealing faces, but it seems more like it was absorbing the people. I don't know exactly how to describe what I'm thinking, but it seems pretty unique to me. It wasn't concrete either, which is good. It wasn't ever showing exactly what it was doing. It just showed Kate all fucked up, skin tore off, hair torn out. So was it just like a creepy creature manually changing its hair every time? Or does it have some ability where... I don't know. But that is fucking awesome. That is even better than I expected when I started reading this. Yeah, and I hope this shit gets some attention. I know, that's badass. Because this, again, was only posted probably 9 hours now that I've read it. And it already has 11 upvotes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on the subreddit like TalesFromTheCreeps, I think even No Sleep at this point, you don't ever really get up to a big amount of upvotes. Yeah, this is awesome. I'm going to check out more of his shit, hopefully. I'll contact him and everything, make sure it's all good to release this episode, all that bullshit. But hopefully I can read more of his stories, because this is fucking awesome. Again, I can't say it enough. I'm so glad I could lock in, too. I don't think I fucked up too much on that latter half. No, that was fucking crazy. I really like the description, too. I was getting, like, praying mantis with the serrated arms and the kind of big extra joints. And I was also getting... this one might be... it's a little different, but I was getting vibes from the creature from Smile. Because that thing was also haunting, and I don't know why, but I'm reminded a lot of that when I was reading this. I really fuck with this. Author, you did a fantastic job. I saw in some of your posts or comments that I was just looking at, it looks like you were kind of discouraged with one of your posts not getting the attention you thought it should have got. But, dude, yeah, keep writing, because this is fucking fire. Fire! I fuck with this. I'm sorry. I'm rambling on about it, but that was really good. I really expected obviously I expected a good story, otherwise I wouldn't have read it. But, yeah, no, that was great. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm going to be reading more from this guy. I'm not sure if next episode will be about this guy, but fucking Fifth Tree, you're the best. Well, I'm not going to say you're the best. I'm sure you understand. But you are fantastic. You're no Beethoven. You might be Beethoven. Again, sorry for rambling on there, but now I want to pose a question to the audience. Anyone who reads it, listens to it. I know my last episode didn't go too well. Got 8 views. I assume it's because it had porn in the title. YouTube probably didn't push it out or anything because it's not exactly what they're going to want on their platform, but anyone who liked this, you should go and listen to that last story too. I really enjoyed that one. I also released it on last Wednesday. I try and release these on weekends when I have time off because I'm off from work on weekends and everything. That's why I release it when I do. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with this. Maybe different topic. Again, I don't remember where I was going with it. But if I were to bring on like guests or find like a co-host, do you think anyone would prefer a co-host, or do you think it's better like solo, maybe the occasional guest? Because I'm not sure exactly what the people who try and watch me and try and watch this type of thing are looking for. Are you looking for the commentary that goes along with the stories? Or are you just looking for the stories? I'm still trying to figure out that kind of balance. Anything. But no, I have at least a friend that mentioned being kind of interested in, co-hosting, whatever. And I just figured I'd bring it up, see if anyone on here who listens far enough, who knows, I only want my real fans to be listening to this part. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Also, if anyone prefers listening on Spotify, I have released all of these episodes also on Spotify. It's a podcast under the same name. There's actually one extra episode on there because I released it without the video before I got this camera. But yeah, 2-sentence horror story time, I think. Let me find a good one real quick. Before the 2-sentence horror story, one more thing you should leave down in the comments, other than a like. It's not in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, please. Please. Would you prefer longer videos? This one's a little bit longer. I've got it about 43 minutes recording. Might cut it down a little bit. I don't really edit because I don't really like editing. But would you prefer longer? Would you prefer shorter? Whatever. I've just been kind of doing varying ranges. Over 20 minutes, under an hour, blah blah blah. Let me know in the comments because I'm kind of thinking about reading My Patients Spent 8 Million Years Under a Bench at the Glenmont Metro, because I've heard the other parts of that story, but I haven't read this one myself. So that seems interesting. It's a little bit longer though, so I want to know that there's at least somebody, even one person, who's going to listen and enjoy hearing that before I record it for no reason when I can just read it by myself way quicker. But yeah, again, tangents and bullshit aside, the best part of the episode, the 2-sentence horror story. After working my whole life, I'll finally have a whole life ahead of me when I turn the ripe, young age of 65 in a few weeks and get my pension. There is no second sentence. This is the horror we were all born into. And then in the comments, they threw a fucking job application in. I fuck with that. I just thought it was really funny because we'll be working until the day we die. I'm a big gambler though, so I'll just win the Powerball at some point. That's all I have for you. Like, subscribe. Have a good one.